The morning sun barely pierced through the airplane window as Sarah Mitchell settled into seat 8B. She was heading home to Phoenix after visiting her daughter in Seattle. The flight was unusually full for a Tuesday morning. Beside her in seat 8A sat a young man who looked utterly exhausted. His military haircut and the dog tags barely visible under his red shirt told her everything she needed to know. He was a soldier. And from the dark circles under his eyes, he'd been through something recently. The man was already asleep before takeoff, his head resting against the window. Sarah noticed his hands trembled slightly even in sleep. She'd seen that before. Her late husband had been in the army. Across the aisle sat a young woman with long blonde hair, maybe in her mid-20s. She kept glancing over at the sleeping soldier with a look Sarah couldn't quite place. Concern, maybe. Or recognition. The flight attendants made their usual announcements. The plane lifted smoothly into the cloudy Seattle sky. Sarah pulled out her book, but found herself watching the young man instead. He seemed so vulnerable in sleep, so young. Probably not even 30 years old. Someone's son. Maybe someone's father. 2 hours into the flight, everything changed. The plane lurched violently to the left. Passengers gasped. The seatbelt sign dinged urgently. Then came the sound no one ever wants to hear on an airplane. A voice over the intercom, strained and tight with tension. "Ladies and gentlemen, this is Captain Rodriguez. We have a serious situation. I need to know if there are any pilots on board. Any pilots at all. Please ring your call button immediately." The cabin erupted in nervous whispers. Sarah felt her heart hammer against her ribs. In all her years of flying, she'd never heard anything like this. The blonde woman across the aisle locked eyes with Sarah. They shared a moment of pure fear. What was happening up there in the cockpit? Another announcement, more urgent now. "This is First Officer Williams. We need a pilot. The captain has become incapacitated. If there is anyone with flight experience, combat experience, anything, please identify yourself now." Sarah looked at the young man beside her, still sleeping somehow through the chaos. Without thinking, she reached over and shook his shoulder. Hard. His eyes snapped open, instantly alert. That soldier reflex. He looked confused, disoriented. "They need a pilot," Sarah said quickly. "They're asking for anyone with flight experience." The young man blinked, processing. Then his hand shot up and pressed the call button above his seat. A flight attendant rushed over, her face pale. "Do you have flight experience, sir?" "Lieutenant Marcus Webb, United States Air Force," he said, his voice rough with sleep but steady. "I fly F-18s, combat missions. Just got back from overseas 3 days ago." The relief on the flight attendant's face was immediate. "Come with me, right now." Marcus unbuckled and stood. Sarah saw him take a deep breath, saw him straighten his shoulders. He was still exhausted, still probably dealing with whatever had kept him awake for days, but he was walking toward that cockpit like he was walking into battle. The blonde woman reached out as he passed, touching his arm briefly. "Please," she whispered. "My little girl is with my mother in Phoenix. I have to get home to her." Marcus looked down at her, and something shifted in his face. He nodded once. "I'll get you home," he said. "I promise." He disappeared behind the cockpit door. The next 20 minutes were the longest of Sarah's life. The plane continued to shake and dip. Overhead, bins rattled. A child cried somewhere behind them. The blonde woman across the aisle held her phone, staring at a picture. Sarah could just make out a little girl with blonde pigtails, maybe 4 years old. Then, gradually, the plane began to steady. The shaking smoothed out. The angle corrected. 30 minutes later, Marcus emerged from the cockpit. His red shirt was dark with sweat. His hands were still shaking, but his face was calm. He walked back to seat 8A and collapsed into it. Sarah didn't know what to say. The blonde woman was crying quietly, relief pouring down her face. "The captain had a heart attack," Marcus said quietly, staring straight ahead. First Officer Williams was panicking. She's qualified, but she'd never dealt with anything like that. The aircraft had lost hydraulics in the left system. We were losing altitude. He paused, running a hand over his face. "I talked her through it, helped stabilize. We've diverted to Salt Lake City. Ambulance will meet us on the ground. Sarah reached over and squeezed his shoulder. You saved everyone on this plane. Marcus shook his head. I just did what I was trained to do. Same as I do over there. You see a problem, you fix it. You don't think about it. The blonde woman unbuckled and came over, kneeling in the aisle beside their row. Tears streamed down her face. Thank you, she whispered. Thank you for keeping your promise. I'm Emma Crawford. My daughter's name is Lily. She's 4. She just started preschool. Marcus looked at her and something in his exhausted face softened. How old are you, Emma? 26, she said. I'm 28, Marcus replied. And I have a 5-year-old son back in Phoenix. His name is Jackson. His mother passed away last year. It's just been us. I was trying to get home to him. I haven't seen him in 4 months. Sarah felt tears spring to her own eyes. This young man, carrying so much, had just saved a plane full of people while running on empty himself. When they landed in Salt Lake City, the entire airport had turned out. Fire trucks lined the runway. Ambulances waited. As passengers disembarked, Marcus stayed in his seat, suddenly unable to move. Sarah stayed too, so did Emma. You did good today, son, Sarah said gently. But I can see you're carrying more than just today's burden. My husband was Army. I know what it looks like when someone's been through too much. Have you talked to anyone? Marcus stared at his hands. I can't sleep. Haven't really slept in weeks. Every time I close my eyes, I see things. Today was the first time I actually slept in days, and only because my body just shut down. Emma sat down in the seat across the aisle. My dad was Marines, Iraq. He came home different, but he got help and it made all the difference. He's been good for 10 years now. Lily's favorite grandpa. Marcus looked up at both women, two strangers who suddenly felt like family. I just want to be there for Jackson. Be the dad he deserves. Then let people help you, Sarah said. That's not weakness. That's wisdom. I'm 62 years old, and I can tell you the strongest people I've ever known were the ones brave enough to ask for help. 3 months later, Sarah received a letter at her home in Phoenix. Inside was a photograph of a young man in an Air Force uniform, standing with a little boy on his shoulders. Both were grinning at the camera. On the back, in neat handwriting, it said, Mrs. Mitchell, Jackson and I are doing well. I got the help I needed. I'm sleeping again. Flying again. Being the dad he deserves. None of that would have happened without you waking me up that day, in more ways than one. Thank you for seeing me. Marcus. There was a second photo. Emma and her daughter Lily standing with Marcus and Jackson at what looked like a park. All 4 of them smiling. And a note from Emma. We all get together once a month now. The kids are best friends. Marcus is teaching me to fly. Life is good. Thank you for being there that day. Sarah put the photos on her refrigerator, where they stayed for years. A reminder that sometimes the smallest act of kindness, like waking someone up when they're needed, can change everything. And that heroes don't always know they're heroes until someone believes in them first. If this story touched your heart, please take a moment to like and share it with someone who needs to hear it today. Subscribe to hear more stories of everyday courage and human connection. And leave a comment below telling us about a time a stranger showed you unexpected kindness. Your story might inspire someone else.